So we've talked about what I know about, and that's working cattle horseback. I don't know much about working cattle a four-wheeler. So we brought in an old friend of mine, Mark King, and he's going to help us a little bit. Mark,
Hi, Curt.
with any style of cattle handling, safety to me is the first and foremost thing that we need to think about for our cattle, for the other people working with us, and for ourselves.
Safety is important, and we should always start out with a helmet and eye protection, some gloves, long pants, boots, and long sleeve shirt. And we should think about how we position that ATV to move those cattle, as you were talking about with the horses. An ATV is rider active, so meaning you've got to ride the machine, unlike a side-by-side where you drive it. And so a lot of times we'll get animals moving in a direction and we'll have some peel off or not going where we want them to. We've got the horsepower and the speed built into the ATV to just try to zoom ahead of them. And that's when a lot of our accidents occur, because we don't see the obstacles that a horse that has eyes and a brain will see.
I've seen places where low wires or things that come across the chest or the neck are very dangerous. And if you're going fast, you can't stop one of these things.
You send somebody out to move cattle that hasn't maybe been there on that property, and those low wires and just single wires can cause a lot of issues.
So what is the best way, in your opinion, to use a side-by-side or a four-wheeler?
When most ranchers think of using the side-by-side or the ATV, they think of moving cattle in pastures. Obviously, one of the things we wouldn't try to do is doctor cattle off of an ATV.
Like with a rope or something.
Like with a rope or something. I think if we're going to have sick cattle that we need to doctor, we can use the ATV to bring them to a working facility.
So you're saying that you can use the ATV to call cattle to you by using a feed or a whistle or something, or you can use them to drive.
Yeah, you know, I've witnessed both ranchers that can drive cattle very well, but I've watched a lot of guys move cattle with just a bag of cake or a hay bale on the back of that four-wheeler, and those cattle will follow them pretty much wherever they want to go.
So it all comes down to stockmanship. When we go to moving the cattle, whether we're horseback, afoot, or on an ATV, it comes down to proper stockmanship techniques in a calm, effective manner.
I would fully agree with that.
Well, let's go show how we can do that.
Let's do that.
All right.
People question the use of four-wheelers. Are they good? Are they bad? It's all a matter of how they are introduced to the cattle. If the cattle's first experience with four-wheelers is being chased all around the pasture at a dead run, they're going to be afraid of four-wheelers. And that could be a difficult thing to fix. You want to make sure that when you introduce the four-wheeler, drive it out to the pasture, sit there on it, you got some feed on it, let them kind of come up and explore it, see that it's not dangerous, then move it around some. It can be used in a good way. It's really important on this country to go really slow with a four-wheeler. This is rough country, and if you go fast, you could be tipping the four-wheeler over with really disastrous results. He's just going along nice and slow. You can start to see the cows up there responding. He's just kind of working in the back, just barely on the edge of the flight zone. In the four-wheeler, it's more difficult to do the classic Bud Williams type back and forth movement, but he's just working really carefully on the edge of the flight zone and moving the cattle forward. See, a basic principle is when the cattle do what you want, you back off the flight zone. Don't keep pushing down on the flight zone. That will get them running. Basic principle of animal handling is when animals do what you want, you give relief. We reward them by backing off of the flight zone. See, he's just moving along, doing the zigzag in the back slowly. Cows responding in a really nice, quiet, controlled manner. And he's just moving back and forth, just barely on the edge of the flight zone to get the animals to start moving. He's on a real steep grade there, so it's really important that he go really slow and carefully, because The ranchers, unfortunately, have more fatalities on four-wheelers than any other people that buy four-wheelers. So it's really important to have safety in mind. See there, the cattle are responding to the position of the four-wheeler. A four-wheeler is less maneuverable than a horse. So you're going to have to work it. You're using the same principles, but you're going to have to drive it differently. It just doesn't move as easily as a horse does. You see the calf responded to his position, then he backed off. And a basic principle when you want cattle to stay somewhere is to back off and wait until they start eating, drinking, or grazing.